Hi Fiona, how you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yes, we are now into June.
I know.
Yes, and here in Spain, and probably in a lot of places, that means kind of winding down towards the end of term, getting ready for exams. And so that's our topic for today. Um, yeah, so exams. Why do people do exams?
Good question. Admin, mostly.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to say self-esteem, but exams can severely negatively impact the self-esteem. But
Yeah.
theoretically, it's an indication of work done.
That sense of achievement, yep, especially if you're kind of putting in a lot of preparation work,
Hmm.
challenging yourself to get to the level that you want to get to. Yeah,
Yeah, although it can go dramatically wrong,
yeah, yeah,
um, which can just depend on the day, not on your level at all. It's a
absolutely.
tricky one. Formal exams, anyway. Um, More informal or in-house type exams that teacher can test what has actually been done
Mm,
in
mm.
terms of content.
And I've seen this not so much with English exams, but with kind of mainstream exams where there's kind of the question paper and then there's a final page. Tell me everything else you know about this topic.
Yeah.
Because some people don't test well, they don't remember that
Yes.
exact information, and so actually being able to then say, well, I know you know this, show me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I wrote an IGC, well, not just one, three IGCE um IGCSE, sorry, lots of letters there, books. Um And so I wrote the physics, well, co-wrote physics, the chemistry, and the biology. And I remember one of them at least, I think it was biology. The actual book, it was the language support books for these. And it had something like each chapter, each unit ended with something like, what else have you learnt about
Yeah.
whatever, the food chain or whatever it was. So that was actually in a course book, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really motivating as well because so much of thinking specifically about standardized English language exams is you either know it or you don't.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
well, this
it's
is it. I
that
think that's why
way.
in-house exams are better, shall we say, at genuinely testing achievement, what you've
Hmm.
managed to do in the year.
Hmm.
A teacher setting exams for their own students or for a year group or something, as long as they use the same type of activity that's been done in the class, not a new type, not suddenly going, oh, you've never done, I don't know, sentences out of paragraphs before, but we'll just put it in because it's in some of the other
Yeah.
exams. No, that's for me, that's not on because the cognitive load there is higher and it's taken in a direction that detracts from the actual
Hmm.
English, the language of what you're testing. But yeah, I think tailor-made is much fairer. I think it's very hit and miss when you do the main exams, the main standard, the Cambridge Suite or any of those,
Mm.
IELTS, TOEIC, these sort of things. It's sort of pot luck if you get a topic that you've done before.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's one thing as well that I find a little frustrating about standardized language exams. And it's something I always say to my students because I've got some students now who are preparing for C2 level exams. And so,
Mm.
they've got a very good level of English. They're incredibly fluent,
Some
they're
of the topics.
engaging with English, they're looking, they're watching TV, they're reading a lot in English. But the listening, when they come to do the listening, it's unlike anything that we naturally do in our first language. And I think the cognitive load quite often of those exam activities, because you're not just listening, you're also reading. And sometimes there's quite a chunk of text, whether it's kind of 8 sentences that you have to listen and identify who says what. It's
Yeah.
it's not something that we do when we listen.
No, I suppose I'm trying to think, but some of those um, exercises may have originally, the original intention may have been to replicate things that we do, like listen to the radio and write down a recipe, that kind of thing, taking notes. But we listen in real life very differently nowadays from we
Mm,
did 10,
yeah.
20 years ago, let alone 30, 40 years ago when these exams, I mean, they have not changed format significantly the entire time I've been teaching. And I've
Mm,
been teaching for, I hate to say it, but it's nearly 40 years now.
yeah.
I remember many in my first year teaching, I think it was, doing a kind of a pilot scheme thing for the proficiency exam for Cambridge, where they chose our school to to go out, and we had to find I think it was 20 native speakers, so-called, and 20 non-native, and get them to do, I think it was the multiple choice
Mhm,
vocabulary thing from the beginning. So they could find kind of parameters of native speaker um, competence against
mhm.
non-native. So that was 1988. And, I don't think it's really changed significantly since then. So,
Yep, yep. And it goes back as well to kind of this idea of exam skills
hmm.
and the
As
fact,
something distinct from any other kind of skills as
yeah,
well.
but also thinking about high level speaking exams, they expect people to produce language at a level above what I would argue most native speakers, most first language speakers use on an everyday basis.
Yeah, and on the spot as well.
Mm,
I think the time limit is a consideration as well, because in a normal conversation, like we do these recordings, unscripted, should we say?
yeah,
But obviously, we have ideas before we go. We don't just suddenly go 2 minutes
generally.
before, oh, let's talk about.
So we often go off on tangent.
And exactly. And also, we're talking about topics that we know, but when you go into oral exams and you suddenly get, I'm thinking of an IELTS one. Tell me about a time where you took a survey, where you took or gave a survey, which I've seen in the exam. That's like, I honestly don't think in the 1 minute that I have for taking notes, I
Yeah,
don't think I could do that very well unless I lie. So I mean, I always tell my students to make it up. It's
yeah.
like, don't waste time
Hmm.
trying to remember a real uncle or a real survey or a
Yeah,
real I don't know, car accident or whatever it says.
yeah.
Just make it up. Just think, what vocab do I know related to this topic, and just throw it all together.
And I had a great tip from a friend, colleague Anna, who said as well, like always sound like an expert because, oh, and always sound like an interested expert in whatever you're talking about, because particularly with teenagers, if it's a topic they're not interested in, the intonation goes very flat. There's not a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
interest. And so I've done an activity a few times. I got my students to just send me a couple of words. So we had things like seahorses was one of them. And then we just put them on like a random word generator and
yeah,
then span it. And then, okay, you've got a minute, 2 minutes to talk about this. And
yeah,
then the other people listening, they had to kind of, how interested did the person sound? How much did they hesitate? Did you notice any kind of interesting language? That one was a little bit trickier for them to reflect on, but certainly kind of how interested did they sound and how much did they
yeah.
hesitate? They could give good feedback on that.
That's a little bit like I do a less tech version, shall we say, just because it said about the wheel. I on the back of my flip chart, I write 5 or 6 topics depending on how many people I got in the room. Let's say I've got 10 in the room, so I write 6 or 7 topics. But things like one that I often write, I'm gonna have to change if I say it now, but never mind. I often write artichokes,
Hmm.
gargoyles, I don't know, a summer's day, these sort of things. Some are easier than others. They're in pairs, each pair chooses a number, and then you turn the board round and or turn over the bit of paper or whatever
Hmm.
it is, read it out, say whatever they got, and then they have 10 minutes to prepare. And then they have to speak about it for 3 minutes per pair. So it's a similar kind of thing, but they do have 10 minutes to prepare there.
Yep, yep. But then
Um,
that very much that mimics the exam style that you do because IELTS, you have that
exactly.
preparation time, don't you? Even if
Yeah,
it's
although
30
in
seconds
IELTS
or
it's only a minute, but still you're solo, you're flying solo in it.
mm,
So this is in pairs and it's more like public speaking. But they really enjoy that. And then
mm,
they find, because they have 10 minutes, they find, should we say, more useful phrases,
mm,
gives them a bit more time to kind of collect their thoughts, structure what they're going to say. And then as you progress and you do this again, you give them less time each time to prepare.
hmm.
But it's in pairs, but it gives them some skills that then they can transfer. And artichokes is very fun to use.
I don't think I'd ever seen an artichoke until I came to Spain.
Well, they have all sorts of medicinal uses and stuff as well. It is a vegetable, but it's a vegetable that you can talk about various things. It's not just
Hmm.
a vegetable. It's used for other stuff as well.
Excellent. Nice.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
anyway, so if your students, so where are we? We're June. So imagine I don't know, I'm going to say 4 weeks, so that's likely to be sooner, but imagine you've got 4 weeks to the exam.
Hmm.
When do you start preparing? Do you start preparing? Overtly preparing. And how? Give me some tips.
Okay, so I mean, the the teenagers that I'm working with this year, they've been working towards Cambridge exams.
Mhm.
So that preparation has been throughout the year, very overt, very much this is an exam activity. Um, and to be
Really?
honest, kind of not so much cramming at the end, because hopefully it should be stuff that they're already familiar with. Um, I think one thing that I will be doing with them, because I've got a few who are taking exams in about 3 weeks' time, um, is a lot of work on the format of the writing and like really drilling home how does it look on paper?
I
Like, y- as an assessor, as somebody reading, I should be able to look at your text and go, right, that's a letter, that's a report, that's a an article, without even looking at the content.
yeah.
Um, and so I do that because I think that's really important for them because it is like a first impression. If a lot of them are going to be doing it digitally anyway, but as well, like if you get a piece of paper which is just kind of scribbles and you can't tell
Mm.
where there's a paragraph and
No
where there's
paragraphs.
not,
I
yeah.
hate that.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of work on the visual, the aesthetic of
Yeah.
their writing. Yeah.
I mostly do IELTS with my students and similarly about appearance, but something I do, and I do it right from the start of the academic year, speed writing. Um, because a lot of them use tablets with styluses normally, or they have to write by hand in the exam. Also, most of my students, as I've said before, right now are from Asian countries where, the writing different anyway. So just getting in the habit of writing,
Mm.
forming words in English quickly. And so we do a lot of activities right from the beginning, that is speed writing, where we'll have, I don't think I've got any in this office with me, but story dice. We do
Hmm.
speedy stories, as I call them, where, we shake three of the dice and they have 3 minutes to write a story, incorporating all three things on the
Mm.
dice. And you know that, and at the beginning of the year, of course, they can't, but then you keep going, keep going. And you get them to journal 10 minutes a day, and they've got to put on their clock, and not in the class usually. It's out, but I say, please, please, please put an alarm set 10 minutes so that
Yeah.
you know what 10 minutes feels like. I think knowing what time feels like, this is true for the speaking exam as well.
Mm.
Knowing what a minute, speak for a minute, between a minute and 2 minutes. Well, what does that feel like? How you've got to be able to gauge what that is because you've got to answer all the parts of the questions in that minute to two
Yeah.
minutes. So what does that feel like? So I give them strategies for that as well. Now I'm conflating ideas here, but I say to them, right, as soon as you start talking, kind of checklist, get your the things that you have to include in the first 50 seconds or
Hmm.
30
Hmm.
seconds, and then just add in detail. Similar for the writing, I get them to write with the space, do their draft copy where they've got all the bits that they need to include, check how many words they've got, and then fill in to make it up to the right
Mm.
numbers. I get them to write as they would write in an exam and then count how many words so that they know in their handwriting what 50 words looks like, what 100 words looks like, etc. So they don't waste time in the exam going,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, these are so for me, exam prep and exam skills, and it's not just about the format of the exercise. Like in IELTS, if you do the academic, the writing part one is really tricky for them
Hmm.
because it's about analyzing a graph and no imagination, just what can you see, sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's part of exam skills, but also just purely knowing how to manage time.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
What is 10 minutes? What is, you've got 20 minutes to write this essay. Yeah, but you've got to account for checking it as well.
Mm.
So it's only really 15. And you've got to plan it. So it's only really 10, maybe 12, sort of stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
Time management, what you can achieve in 20
Yeah.
minutes.
I think that's it as well. Because in terms of the topics that can come up in an exam, like that can be really varied. And so as much of the preparation that we can do with them of knowing what to expect as well. So like in IELTS part one, you're going to be faced with this sort of task. Um, it was a tip that my boss, Danny, gave me years ago. She observed me teaching an exam preparation class, and she was like, just whenever you do part of an exam with them, drill them on how many questions are there, what's being tested, what does it look like, what are the sort of the typical answers, with those kind of the use of English type things. Just so that yes, when they go into the exam, they're going to open it up and it's going to jump from one subject to another, but they're more prepared for, okay, I've done this before, I know this, I know how long I usually can spend on this sort of task as well. Oh yeah.
Yeah, when you said about use of English, that's a similar kind of thing in the writing and the speaking. Check that you got something in the present, check that you got something in the past, check that you got something in the future, check you got something in a conditional, just so that, that you've shown a variety
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
of grammar,
yeah.
a comparative or a superlative. Once you kind of tick those boxes, so again, in
Hmm.
your minute, make yourself a little checklist that you can
Yeah, yep.
Um, what else can we say? Well, I was going to say read. We were talking about graded readers recently. Read as much as possible to kind of absorb as much vocabulary and get in
Yeah.
the habit of, again, reading. Time your reading. How much can you read in 20 minutes? How much?
Mm, mm, yeah.
Because, the IELTS particularly, the IELTS general, it's got a huge amount of reading in an hour because apart from the crazy number of texts, you've got to read the questions. It's about 9 pages. It's it's really hard. I mean, it would be hard for us
Yeah.
because it's only an hour and you get tired.
Mm, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it as well. Yeah.
listening as well.
Actually
I don't
doing
think
that
I know.
intensive
This is it.
practice.
I mean, when I'm listening to an IELTS listening, okay, I don't have the adrenaline of being examined. I'm standing in the room invigilating, whatever, but I always drift off for a moment round about number 35. It's very frequent that I don't catch the
Mm,
answers to number 35, 36, somewhere around there of the 40. It's really hard, I think,
yeah.
concentration.
And
So
I mean, often as
so
well.
to say, simple tip is water. Keep your brain hydrated.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, that's it as well that, generally, well, certainly in my context, my learners have an hour with me. Whereas when it's exam day, it can be kind of 3 hours on the trot by the time
Yeah,
they've done all the
right.
different papers. It's really intense for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. No, it's
Yeah.
it's hard going. It's hard going.
Mhm. Well, do
Um,
you have one more quick tip to finish us off? And it's again a topic we'll come back to.
right. Okay, my quick tip would be make sure your students realize that when you take an exam, the result is only indicative of what you could achieve on that day with that test. So I get my students beforehand to take it about 3 times. We do a mock maybe about a month before so they can see where their needs are. But I also get them like on Fridays or whatever, I encourage them to take a full exam more than once so they can kind of work out the parameters of where they are, if you know
Mm,
what I mean.
mm.
What kind of area of grade do they get across more than one exam?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
otherwise it can be massively demoralizing if they get a topic on, well, I've seen the reproduction of guppies in a proficiency exam as yeah, exactly. And students coming out going, ha! So
Yeah.
so that would be mine. Give them access to these sort of self-practice books, whatever, so they can do two or three by themselves,
Hmm.
even if it's just the reading or the listening. And then they can kind of gauge anyway what their grade should be
Yeah.
to give them a better sense of achievement.
Nice. Yeah,
How
that's
about
a
you?
good tip. Well, mine would be very much kind of an exam day tip. Speak as much English as possible before you go into your speaking exam because
Definitely,
you can
definitely.
really tell the difference when people have been speaking to the person they're with, thinking about the Cambridge exams where they're
Yeah,
impaired.
yeah.
But even if you're just in a one-on-one situation, just even if you're talking to yourself, just change your chip and get your mouth using English and get yourself
I
prepped.
would say before the writing as well, do a quick bit of journaling. Do the
Yep.
same sort of principle. Start, warm up the
Motor
hand,
skills,
get
yeah.
the writing into English, shift your brain into English before as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, carry a little notebook, one of those little Moleskine type notebooks, and just write for
How do
2
I feel
minutes.
about the exam? Ah!
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, my breakfast has upset my stomach. No, whatever. I
Yeah.
should have had another coffee. I
Mm.
shouldn't have had that second coffee. Whatever. But I think it's the same. It's like warming up before, when you go to
Yeah,
the gym.
yeah,
First 10 minutes is just warming up, really, and stretching. Same idea.
yep,
Same
absolutely.
idea.
Fantastic. Well, I will see you again next week, Fiona. Have a very good week.
And you, bye.